finally tonight, what if working less didn't mean earning less?
And Gary, trials show that a four-day work week can maintain productivity and improve morale.
Some Canadian companies are experimenting, but most workers still operate on traditional schedules. So what is holding us back? Well, I was surprised the other day when I stumbled upon this, that there was a study that was done last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it involved a number of countries, including Canada. And I just want to bring up a graphic. There we go. So the positives of a 4-day work week, and this was a human behavior study done in July of last year. Workers are happier, healthier, and less burned out. Productivity held up, and the mechanisms are understood. The work redesign matters as much as the day off.
Mm-hmm.
Staff retention improves dramatically. To me, that'd be a given, I would think.
Right.
Sick days and absenteeism fall sharply. Again, to me, that's a given. The vast majority of companies chose to keep the model permanently. And we'll come back to that one in a minute because it's a little misleading the way it's worded. Revenue and business performance were not harmed. Well, if you're getting pretty much the same productivity on 4 days, why would it be harmed when you think about it? Implementation requires careful preparation. This is huge. It's not a universal fit. Nope. Mm-hmm. And artificial intelligence is accelerating the case for the shorter week. Just coming back around to the vast majority of companies that chose to keep the model permanently, most of them were technology-based companies.
Yeah.
And of course, you've got the younger millennials and the Gen Zers coming through, and that's their battle cry is work-life balance.
Yeah, it's actually a life-work balance in that order.
Yeah, well, exactly. So it's really kind of interesting when you dig down into a couple of the things here. When they say that, excuse me, workers are happier, healthier, and less burned out. It's not going to go there. Okay. The Boston College-led study tracked 2,896 employees across 141 organizations in Australia, Canada, Ireland, New Zealand, the UK, and the USA. It found improvements in burnout, job satisfaction, mental and physical health after a 6-month trial with no reduction in pay. That's the key. The researchers had initially worried that compressing 5 days of output into 4 might increase stress, but stress levels actually fell. The staff retention, well, a 57% decline in the likelihood that an employee would quit was recorded, dramatically improving job retention. 15% of employees said no amount of money would induce them to return to a 5-day schedule.
Yeah.
No amount of money. Looking at the sick days and absenteeism, results showed a 65% reduction in the number of sick days, along with maintained or improved productivity at most businesses. This has direct cost implications, of course, for employers managing absence and coverage.
Right.
The vast majority of companies choosing to keep the model permanently, roughly 90% of participating companies chose to continue the 4-day model after the trial, suggesting satisfaction with the outcomes across a wide range of sectors and company sizes, although when you dig down a little more, a lot of them were technology-based companies.
Yeah.
The revenue and business performance not harmed. Again, Companies' revenue stayed broadly stable over the trial period, while when compared to a similar period from prior years, organizations reported revenue increases of 35% on average, indicating healthy growth during this period of reduced hours. Of course, AI accelerating the case. A recent OECD study found workers in customer support, software development, and consulting have seen productivity gains of 5 to 25% from AI integration. As AI compresses the time required for knowledge work, the math behind a 4-day week becomes more viable for a broader range of organizations. And I think we're just on the cusp of really getting into that now. Now, this is something that we really do have to consider. And that's the implementation, as I mentioned, requiring careful preparation. It's not a universal fit. Right. Every participating company spent roughly 8 weeks restructuring its workflows before the trial began. 8 weeks. Preparation was non-negotiable. One expert cautioned that one less day at work could lead to increased anxiety and isolation as the result of having the same amount of work to do but less time to get it done, and that the structure doesn't suit every employee or business model.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting to note, Gary, like you mentioned, a lot of these are IT positions. I mean, without me actually, myself actually looking at the results, right off the top of my head, the first thing that came to my mind was, I can see this being extremely relevant for professional jobs. I mean, you're talking about engineering. You're looking at your IT specialists. Developer, architectural firms, and that kind of stuff, like really professional office style type of functionality, where I can actually see this working. Where I struggle to see how this would work is in an area where people need a 4-day work week the most, is in services, in retail, in travel industry, and that type of work, manufacturing. I would find that the owners of these small businesses or owners of these companies struggle to say, well, you know what, we want our production people, our line workers, or our line cooks, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, you know what, you go work only 4 days a week. I'm going to pay you for 5. Meaning that they have to hire additional resources to backfill the day that they're not actually working, because they have to sustain business 7 days a week. So I can't really see this working in a retail, restaurant, tourism, travel type of environment, amongst others, even maybe line production. I can't see this working at a Ford plant. I mean, you can't just arbitrarily say, oh, I'm going to make the same money in 4 days, and meanwhile you have an extra shift that needs men, and you got to hire people for that. What are you going to do? So this is, for me, it's extremely encouraging coming from an IT environment, and I've toyed with this before. I didn't go down to a 4-day work week with reduced hours and the same salary. What we did end up doing is we went 4 days on, 40 hours, and 3 days off on a cyclical fashion. And you know what? I'd say about 50 to 60% of my staff liked it. Some of them didn't. So it's not a one model fit all purpose type of thing, right? So I found that there was an opportunity to give people a break, and it was just unfortunate that my management at that time, and we're talking almost 20 years ago here, no way in hell that we work in an environment that was going to pay for 4 days work, pay 5 days work for 4 days where the floor was manned. You know what? We're 20 years later now. Maybe companies have changed that I'm not fully aware of, but I think it's something that should be done. It should be encouraged if it's something that can be done, because the studies, as you said, Gary, are extremely positive, where same salary for 4 days, less hours, that you actually gain productivity. And we, just before the show, Gary, we talked about COVID and the consequences of people working from home. companies have saved oodles of money because the bean counters, as you mentioned, say, hey, wait a minute, our people are working from home. I know we've got 4 floors in a high-rise office tower. We only need 1. Why are we spending money on 3? Which creates a whole host of other problems for the economy. But a lot of things are possible if you just put your mind to it. And at the end of the day, Gary, it's going to come down to how much money are we making, how much money are we saving, and this is just one way of getting there. And I'm really pleased to see that you brought this up as a discussion point today. I think it's extremely important. In today's day and age, it's so easy to get burned out if you're not careful. And companies promoting this kind of a workplace environment will only encourage people that are there to stick around, because retraining people is a tremendous loss to a company. It's very expensive. And in keeping employees happy just provides for a better workplace environment that people want to work there. And you're going to get the productivity out of them. And I'd say, why not? Let's go for it. I'm not sure something like this will ever be legislated, but I'm really hopeful that companies will see the light and see the value of something like this, especially in Canada and some of these more progressive countries. I'm not sure it's something like this would be of tremendous value in terms of the American culture and of managing their workforces. But you know what? One can only hope.
Well, certainly from the technology world in the U.S., and that's where most of your big successful companies are based, I wouldn't be surprised that there are some sorts of these things going on now in your Apples and your Googles and your Microsofts, and some of the AI companies as well, OpenAI and the rest of them. However, there's no doubt that there are certain occupations that would probably not lend themselves well to this kind of a concept. But, there are some shift type occupations that do. There are a number of police departments, for example, that work 4 on, 10-hour shifts. Yeah. So, but I can see too, like you get into some heavy industrial manufacturing scenarios, plants, paper mills and things like that, that from a safety standpoint, that extra 2 hours or 2.5 hours on your shift, you may be, because of whatever job you're doing in there, you may be putting yourself and other workers at danger because the fatigue level is starting to set in and could lead to something, catastrophic. So I get that. And I guess that's why, too, they insisted that companies taking part put together a plan, take 2 months and put together a plan to make sure that everything was covered and that they could participate and see if it would be a success. So it would take a lot of planning for sure. And as we've said there, and then the other part of it is, it's a change of mindset as well, Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
A real change of mindset in the fact that we've been working 40-hour weeks for how long? It seems forever. And we're in the 21st century. And we are, on the verge of artificial intelligence being able to do more and more of the grunt work, if you will, which frees you up to do other things, but you can be, between the AI doing the grunt work and you being much more free for the project work and things like that, you're going to get it done faster and it's going to be better because you're completely focused on that instead of all of the other little interruptions along the way.
Right. True. Well, as a matter of fact, you mentioned we've been doing this for a very long time, and I confirmed it with our friend ChatGPT. The 40-hour work week, 5 days a week, Henry Ford. He basically set that wheel in motion as the standard standard for North America in terms of work hours and how he set up his shift. So it was Henry Ford.
Wow. And you said that earlier before we went live. Yeah. Henry Ford. So it is time to have a look at it.
High time.
Because there are a lot of things changing and making it much, much easier to come up with something that's going to give everybody a slightly better life-work balance. And that, helps with the retention side of it. Look at the numbers as far as the retention was concerned.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. 57%, I think it was. Like, could you walk into a lot of places here right now in Montreal or elsewhere in Canada and see if you could get a 57% satisfaction rating from employees?
That extra day to help with family business you can't put a value against that. It's gold, absolute gold. So I like the idea. I'm all
for it. So do I. And I remember after I retired, I went back on a contract, but I went back for 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and kept Monday and Fridays for the weekend kind of thing. And I was as productive, if not more so, than what I was or what I would have been sitting there 5 days a week. And I was thinking to myself back then, like, why are we doing 5 days a week? When you think about it now, in particular, you have a lot of people start winding down on Thursday. By Thursday at noontime, they're already in weekend.
Correct. Right.
And Friday's just a washout.
Yeah.
You've got some people who don't have to punch a clock going out for lunch around 11:30 in the morning, and you don't see them again until Monday.
Yeah. I've seen that happen.
Yeah, sure. But they're in contact. They have their phones, so they're not that far away. Anyhow, and that's a whole other side of the story as well, as to how far do you go with being available by phone, text message and email. That's an issue for another day. So with that, Eddie, what do we take away?
Well, Gary, the takeaway from this segment 3 is the idea may work, but scaling it is a completely different challenge.